welcome back to another episode of the Speak Daughter podcast. I will be honest, it has been, I'm gonna say, maybe like 5 weeks since I posted my last episode of the podcast. Life has been crazy. It's been very, very crazy. I think right after that last episode, I got really sick. I was sick for like 2 weeks. And then I got very busy in my business. I think I've kind of talked a little bit about this, but I own a photo booth company out here in Denver, and September has been an insane month for us. Grateful for it, but definitely just off the rocker. Off the rocker for sure. So it's definitely been a minute. And then we recently found out that we're pregnant with our fourth child, which is crazy in of itself. So life has been a whirlwind, but I'm back and definitely focusing more on creating a good rhythm, just kind of figuring things out. And I think that's part of it, right? Like, I think when we start out and we set out to do anything, finding the rhythm, I think, is important, because rarely is it a situation where we don't have anything else in our lives going on and time is just, what's the word, abundant. And initially, when I first started the podcast, I think my intention was, okay, I'll record on Saturday mornings and then, edit and then post. And it just hasn't, Saturdays are not working. So Saturdays are not a good time. So instead of, for a while, I'd be like, man, I just don't have the time. I don't have the time. I don't have the time. There's so much else going on. Let me just find another rhythm, find another day. So for me, it's definitely trying to shift it to where I'm recording after work during the week, and we'll go from there. We'll see. But yes, we are back. We are back. We are back. So grateful, so thankful for everyone who's listened and downloaded and shared so far and subscribed to the podcast on YouTube. I think everything has been great and it's moving along, and I'm grateful for it. And I just really pray that every episode there's something, that you guys can walk away from. That's ideal for sure. So this episode, I think it's one that kind of came out of nowhere, but it hit me in a way. I'm not going to say that it's something that I struggle with, but it's something that I'm very aware of in my life, and it's self-control. For me, I don't really struggle with like shopping or like being mean to people or like these things, right? But self-control is definitely an area that is connected to the words that come out of my mouth, and I'm very aware of that. And this kind of started where it was maybe a few weeks ago, just being very, I'll say, bothered. I currently work a full-time job, and don't hate the work. I just know that job is 100% distracting from the other, what I believe are more important things, like the podcast or my businesses and like launching another business. It just detracts from that time. And there was definitely a day a few weeks ago where I was just really upset and I was really bothered by it, and I was at work like in a funky mood, and I was texting my husband and explaining to him like how it was that I was feeling. And obviously, kind of like what I mentioned, we're about to have another baby due next May. And his response to my complaint and my frustration was like, well, then you just need to find another job, like that will allow you to be at home. And that just irritated me. If I'm being fully transparent, it really just irritated me. And my response to him, it was something along the lines of like, I don't I don't like that response. Like you're telling me to do something that I've already tried doing, that I'm already trying to do. I'm not an idiot. I'm not dumb. If I know that being in this office, um, far not, I mean, it's further than I would like to be from home. Um, it's not something that I'm not aware of. Totally aware of it. So your response isn't helpful, right? Um, Now, a little backstory to that. Years ago, um, I want to say maybe when we first got married, his plan was by the time you're 35, I want you to not have to work and you can just be at home and I'll be doing real estate and like all of these things. And 35 came and went. I'm currently 37. And that's always something that's been stuck in my head. And it's not for a lack of him not wanting to do that, but it's just life happens and you kind of have to shift and change and go along with it, right? And in that moment, fast forward to the moment where we're having a conversation, in that moment, everything in me wanted to just like venom, just kind of come like out of my frustration, out of my anger, out of just being fed up, say things that I knew were not going to be helpful or be kind or be reflective of what I really think and how I really feel, right? Um, about him and about like the situation. Thank God. And this is how I know I'm saved because I didn't. It was just like, okay, like I'm going to leave the conversation where it's at and I'm going to let it alone because we're going to get into it, and either I'm going to say something or he's going to say something, but it's not going to fix the issue. It's not going to make everything automatically better. Um, and I'm really glad that I didn't. But it was like right there, like right on the tip of my tongue where I'm like, I know exactly what I can say and how I can say it to like make you feel bad because I feel bad right now. And I think that that's one of the things that I've always had the ability to do is really like crush with my words. Um, I think for the majority of my adult life, I've always had people, talk about the sound of my voice or talk about how eloquently I can speak, all of these things, right? And I do believe that they're a gift from God, but I think attached to that gift is also the possibility of using it in a way that God doesn't intend. And I've always had the ability to just be very slick and just very like snide and like not so nice like with my words. And I think the more I've come to know God and the more he's changed my heart and he's changed my awareness of gifts that he's put on the inside of me, the more I'm like, the more I'm aware of that need for self-control. I think everyone, well, if you don't know, self-control is the fruit of the spirit. And for me, I take that to mean that I need to have the Holy Spirit living on the inside of me, operating on the inside of me, in order to function in proper self-control. I think without it, what we have is like a pseudo version of self-control. The version of self-control where maybe we're operating in it part of the time and then maybe the other part of the time we're kind of just doing whatever we want and whatever it is that feels good, or saying whatever we want and saying whatever we think is right at the time. But I think true self-control, when you have that and it comes from the Holy Spirit, he is able to do his job in that he is the one that kind of puts the bridle on your tongue. He is the one that like, you probably shouldn't go there, you probably shouldn't do that, probably shouldn't say that. Kind of checks you right where you stand. And I think I think I talk about this in a previous episode, um, where there's like a day my husband's like playing video games and he's like, "Do you need anything?" And I'm like, "Ugh," because I'm in the middle of doing everything. And again, like it's one of those things where it's right there, like on the tip of my tongue, but something pulls me back and it's like, well, you're not perfect. You know what I mean? Or it's like, that's not how you should respond to someone who's trying to help you. It's not how you should respond as a wife to her husband, you know? And knowing that the words that we speak, it could go either way. Self-control with your tongue, I think, is very, very key, you know, especially in today's world where everyone is like, speak your truth and like, you can say whatever you want to say. As a Christian, as a believer, it doesn't fly. You're held to a higher standard because of who we represent. And I think for me, it was definitely like a moment where I'm really thanking God and I'm really like, man, because if I didn't have the Holy Spirit living on the inside of me and if I wasn't like sensitive to it and my heart wasn't open to his promptings and open to his leading, it would have been all bad. It really just would have been all bad. And like I said, I don't have to say, because it's part of who I was. I was not, and I tell my husband this all the time. If he knew me before he really knew me, he wouldn't have wanted anything really to do with me, because my husband is a very like level-headed, even-keeled, easygoing, you know, very like just don't be mean to be mean kind of person. And that's the exact opposite of is how I operated before Christ, for sure. And he's like, he doesn't believe it. And I'm like, you don't understand. You don't understand. I know the power that I have inside my mouth, and it's the same power that everyone else has. But it's definitely one of those things that we have to understand, that true self-control isn't based off of what we think or based off of how we feel, but it is based on really yielding to the Holy Spirit, yielding to what is in the Word, you know, and living and acting and moving in those things. So a few things that were kind of revealed as I was, you know, writing the notes for this episode. And usually when our self-control is being tested, it's not something that it's not like, hey, you're going to be tested tomorrow in your self-control. You know, you're going to be tested. Someone's going to say something to you, or you have the ability to get away with doing something you know you're not supposed to. It's never something that we're going to anticipate, and it often comes in moments where the choice is right in front of us. And the choice to ignore it is oftentimes a lot easier. And it may be what satisfies the inside the most. You know, I think everyone at some point has been in a position where they're getting into it with someone, or they can just say one little thing and it just feels really good. It feels vindicating to like say the thing to the person, but you know that it's something that's going to cut them down. It's not easy to walk away from those moments. It's really not. But knowing every time that we make that choice, the devil loses a little bit more of that grip, right? He loses a little bit more of the ability to continue to use that thing to try to get us to do the opposite of what God is trying to get us to do. And it's also understanding that self-control doesn't just apply to what we do, but it's also But it's also in stuff that like we meditate on, situations and scenarios that we play out in our minds, and whether or not we allow our emotions to take us to a place where we shouldn't be. And I do not know about you guys, but I definitely know for me, anytime, like if I'm in like any sort of a disagreement with my husband or something happens, or something like in my family is crazy going on, if I'm like, it's very easy for me to be driving and think about that thing and then be like, I should say this, and like play it out in my mind. It takes self-control in those moments to not meditate on things like that. Like just kind of like what I said, it's the only way that I can explain it is like playing out conversations or scenarios or situations that you might think you're going to encounter in life, or in your day or in your week or in your month or whatever the case may be, and playing them out in a way where like you feel good, and you say the thing or you do the thing that makes you feel good on the inside. It takes self-control to like, wait a minute, like that's not it. Like that's not something I should be focusing on, and shifting that time and shifting that atmosphere to something that you should be. It definitely takes control. I mean, self-control, Holy Spirit self-control, to identify like this thing that I'm meditating on, this thing that I'm playing out. It has my attention, it has my heart, it has my focus for some reason, and understanding that it could very well be a thing that the enemy is trying to like use to plant seeds and put us in a place where we are imagining ourselves doing or saying things that are wrong, which can lead us to actually doing and saying things that are wrong. And I think that was a really big realization for me, because like I said, I can very easily be like, I can't believe they said that to me. And then we're just, kind of riding along and playing things out in our heads, right? And there's a few scriptures. I'm not going to say a lot, but there's a few key scriptures, and I'll link them in the show notes just so you can kind of reference them. But one of the ones that really sticks out to me is Galatians 5:25. And essentially it's saying like, since we should be living by the Spirit, and we do live by the Spirit, right? We have to keep in step with the Holy Spirit. But we need the Holy Spirit in order to keep in step with Him. It's not something that we can just do on our own, right? We have to have the awareness that we need Him to begin with. And we have to have the awareness that He's there, but we need to lean on Him and tap on Him in those times, so that we can utilize that self-control and He can make it apparent, right? There's a book by Charles Stanley all about the Holy Spirit. What is the name of the book? I'll have to find it and I'll have to link the show notes. But he lays it out really plainly, like the job of the Holy Spirit, right? Everyone knows Jesus died, and he says, I have to go so that the helper can come. Helper being the Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit's job is, well, a couple of the jobs is to correct and to convict and to guide us, right? And correction and conviction and like redirection and guidance doesn't always feel good, but it's necessary, because it's not stuff that we can do on our own. And just like the example that I gave earlier on, right? Being so close to saying the thing that I know I shouldn't have said. You know what I mean? Being so close to saying something that I know could hurt the heart of my husband, or hurt the heart of a friend or a family member, whatever the case may be. If I didn't have the Holy Spirit, and if I wasn't leaning on Him, and if I don't invite Him into my heart, into my atmosphere on a daily, and give Him the reign to come in and correct and convict and guide, then I could be out here doing whatever, doing and saying whatever, and not thinking twice about it. So I really thank God for that awareness. And I don't know, I mean, I think in this day and age, kind of like what I said a few moments ago. There's a lot of people who are saying, like, just do what you want, live your truth, live your life however. But again, as believers, we need that correction and we need that conviction. We need that guidance in order to help us to keep in step with the Holy Spirit so that we're not out here hurting people or forfeiting whatever it is that God has placed on the inside of us to do just for a moment of feeling good or being right or being, vindicated in any certain moment. You know, we have to continually lean on the Holy Spirit for that self-control because it's on another level, right? I think from a worldly standpoint, we think of self-control as like, oh, well, I'm not going to eat that thing, or, oh, I'm going to go to the gym, or, I'm going to get up at a certain time. All of these very like surface things, which they matter, right? But not to the degree at which Holy Spirit self-control can help us, guide us, and correct us, and convict us, and keep us in step with God's original purpose and his plan for our lives, right? I think there's a couple of key points that I got from the scriptures. And like I said, I'll go ahead and I'll put those in the show notes. But our self-control will always be tested in areas that God desires to use for a positive impact in his kingdom, right? And I take myself as like an example. Proverbs tells us, listen, the tongue has power of life and death, right? So if God has given someone the gift in their mouth, what is the enemy going to do? He will use and do everything he can to poison that gift. So it makes sense that like I have so many moments in my day where I'm like, so many times where I'm like, almost got me. You know what I mean? And it could be at work, it could be at home, it could be with friends, like just always coming close, but something, no, like let's take a few steps back, right? So it makes sense that there's something in my mouth, there's something with my words, and the enemy wants to do whatever he can to try to destroy it. Because God intends to use it for an impact. God intends to use it for his kingdom. But if I'm on TikTok or I'm on Instagram or Facebook and I'm cussing and I'm saying all of these things and I'm like, what does that do for the messages in the podcast? It destroys them. Those seeds, those positive seeds that are being planted, go nowhere, right? Or people look at me, well, this person says they're a Christian, but look at how they're really acting. Maybe that's okay for me to do too. So it's always bigger than us. Exercising Holy Spirit self-control is always bigger than us. That thing that you are struggling with, the thing that God has placed on the inside of you, you're going to meet opposition in those things. And it's not for you to figure out how to navigate it for yourself, but it's for you to lean on the Holy Spirit, lean into the Holy Spirit, and ask him for help and ask him for his guidance to get you through those situations. So just a couple of like other examples, right? If you're meant to speak life into people and encourage them, you're probably going to be tested with your tongue, right? If you're meant to sow financial seeds, you'll probably need self-control to control your buying habits. If you're meant to love the people who are hard to love, you'll probably need the Holy Spirit to control how you respond to your own hurt and rejection, right? Because again, I think anything that God intends to use for his kingdom, the enemy will do anything and everything, especially if we start operating in those things, man. Especially, if you're supposed to be out here preaching the word, 100%, enemy's going to try to take up your time. He's going to try to, make you feel like you can't, make you feel like you're not worthy. And you need to have the self-control to know not to meditate on those thoughts, not to meditate on those ideas, and just trust and believe what it is that God has placed on the inside of you. So there's a couple of things that I want to leave you with that will prayerfully help if you know that self-control is something that you're struggling with, or you feel like something is pulling on you in a certain area. I want to leave you with a few actionable things, right? And again, it really does start with understanding that this is not a I got this type of arena, right? Like, this is I need help, and I need the helper with areas of self-control, right? So here's a few things. Just want to make it actionable for you guys. So number one is definitely ask God to help reveal areas where you're not having self-control, that can have an impact on you, both present day and future, right? Because there could be things that are kind of coming up that are going to hit you out of nowhere, but you want to be aware of those things. Ask God to reveal them to you, and he will, because ultimately he wants us to remain usable, right? And if we are operating within self, without his self-control, we may not be as effective, or we may not be usable to do the things that he's put us here to do. Number two would be asking for awareness and sensitivity to the moments where your self-control is challenged, so that you can ask the Holy Spirit to help you navigate the situation. So that's where it comes like, oh man, let's say you do struggle with, saving your money, your buying habits. Maybe you're spending more than you're sewing, and your group of friends ask you, like, hey, you want to go to the mall? But you're in that moment, right, where you have a choice. I can go and I could spend, or I can go and maybe just window shop, or just enjoy the company of my friends, right? When you have that situation, ask God for the awareness and to make you sensitive that that is something that you're struggling with, right? And asking the Holy Spirit for strength to help you navigate it. So even if it's like, oh yeah, I'll go, but then something else more important comes up to where you can no longer go, you have to trust that God will intervene where it is that he needs to intervene, and he will have help where you need that help if you're looking for it. Number three is, when you know better, you must do better. Be consistent in leaning on the Holy Spirit throughout your day. And whether it's the gentle nudges, or soft correction, or even harder correction, because I definitely get that sometimes, the harder correction, accept it, thank him for it, and apply it. And continue to look for those opportunities where you do, like, recognize that you are more sensitive. You do recognize that you are more aware. You do recognize that he's showing you something, or he's pulling you back, or he's giving you the nudges like, hey, let's not do that, because ultimately when we're aware of it, and we accept it, and we apply like the correction and the conviction, it'll only bring about more of that. And instead of it being something where you feel like you're failing or you're falling, view it as it's refining. God is taking the things off of you that he can't use, and replacing it with stuff that you will be able to use in order to make the impact that you need to make. So that's all I got for this episode. Again, I'll link those scriptures and the key points there in the show notes. Share this with someone if you've found something that resonates with you. Definitely reach out in the comments. Let me know. You can find me on social media, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, all the things. I'll link that in the show notes as well. I'd love to connect with you and hear what you guys have to say. But that is all that I got for this one, and I will catch you in the next one.